and welcome to my channel, and I am Stephanie, and this is the February full-on wrap-up, so part 2 of February's wrap-up, and it might get a little crazy in here in just a couple minutes. As I said, it's gonna get crazy in here because this month has been obviously crazy. I filmed a part 1 wrap up like a week and a half ago, and you guys have seen that, and you should know that I had what, 16 books that I had read then. You guys are gonna it blows my mind that I finished this month off, the month that only has 28 days most years, except for every 4 years when it has 29. But this month has just been crazy. So super crazy. So like I did last month, I'm going to start off with the stats, and then I'm going to get into the second part of the books that I read, because when I tell you this number, you shall understand why. So the stats for this month, I read 30 books this month. Oh my goodness. 21 were audiobooks. 9 of those were actual ebooks. 8 of those were arcs, and I was scheduled to read 12 arcs for this month. I listened for those 21 audiobooks. It was a total of 174 hours and 17 minutes worth of books. And the total amount of pages that completely adds up to for those 30 books is 8,658. My ratings for this month: 14 5-star books, 10 4-star books, 2 3-star books, 2 2-star books, 1 1-star book, and I DNF'd 1 book. I participated in the Contemporary-a-thon for this month, and it ran from February the 12th until the 18th, and for that I read 8 books. I'm not going to go into which 8 books I actually read. I will just link the wrap-up in the cards right up there. For Genreathon, I read a total of 2 books, and for that I read The Immortal Circus Act 1 by A.R. Keller and Jackaby number 1 by William Ritter. For my Black authors this month, for Blackout 2018, I read a total of 4 books, and those books are The Last Black Unicorn by Tiffany Haddish, The Air He Breathes by Brittany C. Cherry, My Soul to Keep, Soul number 1, and Down to My Soul, Soul number 2 by Kennedy Ryan. For the 2018 Romance Roundabout, I read a total of 9 books altogether, and those books were Lust Killer by Anne Rule, and that was for mystery. Dirty English, English number 1 by Ilsa Madden Mills for new adult. The Immortal Circus Act 1 by A.R. Keller, which was fantasy. 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole, which was a YA or young adult. The Air He Breathes by Brittany C. Cherry, which was a romantic suspense. Curing Dr. Vincent, The Good Doctor number 1 by Renee Mason, and that was under erotic romance. Elite by Carrie Aarons, and I placed that under new adult. Jackaby number 1 by William Ritter, and I put that under steampunk as well as fantasy, but for the roundabout it went under steampunk. And also I read Brokeback Mountain by Annie Polk, that's how you say it, for the LGBT category. So those are the stats that you guys needed to know. Yeah, so I'm gonna start my reviews and everything like that, starting with weeks, or the 3rd and 4th week of February, so from February 18th until the 28th of February, with my ratings and what I gave and what I read and everything like that, because you guys can check out my part 1 of February's wrap-up in the cards right there, and you know, then if you want to see the first part of it, please feel free to pop out and then just make sure you come back, please. So let's get to those. Alrighty, so I started off the second half of February with Fix My Fall, Fix number 3 by Carrie, Heywood, and that was a contemporary romance. I read it as an arc. I give this book 5 stars. This story is Abby's story of the Thompson family, and she is independent, she's sassy, she likes to take care of herself, and she is just having trouble finding love. Well, she reconnects or is reintroduced to someone that the family has met or knows from high school and everything like that. So he comes back into her life, and this is their journey to finding what they need together. The next book I read was Come Undone, Cityscape number 1 by Jessica Hawkins, and this I listened to as an audiobook. I give this book 4 stars. This book follows, it's a contemporary, and this book follows Olivia and David, and it was an interesting story for me. So it definitely has some trigger warning aspects to it. It deals with a sometimes unliked subject, so be careful when you go into this book. If you have any issues with infidelity or the possibility of infidelity, then definitely tread this one with caution. But I did enjoy it, and I look forward to getting into the next books for the series. The next book I read was One Dom to Love, The Doms of Her Life, book number 1 by Shayla Black and 2 other authors. I can't remember what their names were. I listened to this on audiobook. It's an erotic romance that deals in BDSM as well as a club, and I only give this book 2 stars. I wasn't feeling it. It got very immature. Rain sort of comes on the scene and has been being taken care of by Hammer, and then when she finally comes of age and becomes a woman and wants to find her dom, and it just felt, it didn't feel right to me. It wasn't my cup of tea. I love me an erotic story and a BDSM story, but this one just didn't do it for me. The next book I read was Bulletproof number 4 by Jenna Galicki, and this falls into the LGBT category, and this book was an arc, and I DNF'd it. Wasn't feeling it, and just couldn't do it. I enjoyed 2 of the other books in the Bulletproof series, but this one just wasn't working for me. This is also a male-male romance. So the next book was Curing Dr. Vincent, The Good Doctor number 1 by Renee Mason, and I listened to this on audiobook. This book is an erotica romance, and this book was amazing. I met Renee Mason at Rebels Hit the Road during my 50 Shades Freed signing and screening, and wow. The audiobook is smoking hot. I mean, like, fire. Wow. Super hot. The narrators were amazing, and it just pulls you into this story, and it's twisted and it's dark in some ways, but it's definitely hot and sexy and craziness. So you have Elin, who has some secrets and dark past, and she is invited by Vincent over to Paris to spend 1 week with him, and Sebastian and Margot. And oh, the hot sexiness that they get into. Wowzer. Wow. And then there's some twists and turns that's just gonna knock your socks off. The next book I read was Down to My Soul number 2 by Kennedy Ryan. I placed this in contemporary. This book I listened to as an audiobook, and this one gets 5 stars as well as the first book in the series, because the narrators were the same, and then this story just continued to dive and flow and ebb, and it just kept pulling you in. The struggles between Kai and Ryson are just, it's amazing. I loved it. I loved the narration. I loved the different voices, and this is the voice that is now in my head for these 2 characters, and I just love it. Love every single minute of it. The next book I read was Elite by Carrie. I read this as an arc. It is placed in the new adult genre or subgenre, and this book I give 4.5 stars to. I really enjoyed this book. It is a standalone, but it does have a character that you have already met if you've read the book Privilege, and it follows Eloise. You do not need to read Privilege to understand what's going on in Elite, because it happens, or it occurs a few years after Elite, or excuse me, a few years after Privileged is over with. So you're now following Eloise. Eloise has decided to pursue herself as a chef, and she's going to university and the Sorbonne. I think I said that right. But she needs to take a year or a semester as a foreign exchange student, so she decides to come to the United States and goes to a college or university that has a good wine program, because I can't pronounce what a wine taster actually is. So I'm not going to try and pronounce it, but she comes to study that, and she meets the basketball superstar of the university, Colton, and lots of things happen because there's this secret society that's there, and yeah, lots of hijinks. I really, really, really enjoyed that book. The next book was Jackaby, Jackaby #1 by William Ritter, and this falls into the fantasy but also steampunk section of subgenre that I am placing it in, and this book I listened to as an audiobook. It could also possibly be deemed as a middle grade book, but this story follows Jackaby, and he takes on a new assistant. Her name is Miss Rook, and before I get into the description of the book, I give this book 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. So Jackaby is this sort of Sherlock Holmes, Doctor Who, Harry Potter-ish type investigator, and Miss Rook is his assistant, or is vying to be his assistant, and they get into all these different little troubles and have to solve a murder that is going on. People are getting murdered in their town, and they have to figure it out. So it was fun. When I was listening to it, I definitely felt that my husband would like this book way more than I did, and I did enjoy it because Miss Rook was snarky and Jackaby was snarky as well, and I liked the play that they had on it. I don't know if I'll be continuing on with the series, just because I'm not really into the fantasy area of what they're bringing. The next book I read was Egomaniac by Vi Keeland, and this is a contemporary. I give this book, I listened to it on audiobook, and I give it 4.5 stars because it was just missing just a small little piece of something. But overall, I loved this book. I really, really enjoyed it. So you have Emery, who is swindled in New York City into buying a office space from Drew, but Drew isn't the person that she buys it from. She buys it from the scam artist, and then all sorts of craziness ensues, and some things from Drew's past are revealed, and their journey as enemies to friends and lovers is fabulous. I really, really enjoyed it, and they both have trust issues, and yeah, it was a good book. Next book I read was Surviving Dr. Vincent, The Good Doctor #2 by Renee Mason, and I listened to this one on audiobook as well. It's erotica, as I said before, and this is the continued story of Elaine, Sebastian, Vincent, and Marco, and I give this book 5 stars. It brought even more heat and more twists and more craziness that just, whoo, yes, just devoured that. If you're looking for hot, sexy yumminess, yeah, yes, all of that. Yes. Next, I read Gods and Monsters by Saffron A. Kent, and this book, I would have to say, I am putting it into the dark romance subcategory, and I had this as an arc. I give it 4 stars. It was a little, maybe too religious for me, just a tiny bit, but the play that it has, the story is coming of age. It is about Evie and Abel Evie sees Abel. Abel has some dark history. It's about a small town, and yeah, it's something that you just have to read and sort of open your mind to and allow yourself to feel the story. I think the reason I gave it 4 stars is because it was a little bit overly descriptive for me, but I still enjoyed the overall arc and the journey that these 2 characters take, even though it has a lot of religious undertones and it's a little overly descriptive. It by no means whatsoever is preachy in any way. Like, in any way. It's like, it really sort of tests your thoughts on the morals of your life and what you think and how you were raised and things. It's just one of those books you just kind of have to experience. But it's a story, and it was moving, and it was very enjoyable. This is the 2nd book that I've read by Saffron and yeah, I'm really enjoying her work. The next book I read was One Last Time by Corinne Michaels. I placed this in contemporary, and I received it as an ARC, and it released early, so I got it on audiobook, and I devoured this book. I give this book 5 stars. It is absolutely amazing because Corinne just knows how to write a mature character. Oh my goodness. Yes, 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 yes. Kristen has a life-changing moment where she gets divorced from her husband, and it really makes you question, you know, that life after a marriage, and why did you stay, or why didn't you leave when you could have earlier, or why did you stay so long, and what happens after you have left, and how is your life supposed to progress? Well, Kristen gets an assignment in sort of her old sort of work field, and she has to do an interview for Noah, and Noah is this big movie star or television star, and yeah, their journey. I thought in the beginning of the book that Corinne was gonna like rip my heart out and make me cry just a little, but then it completely flipped over, and it was so much fun to read about their journey and the things that they had to go through, and I just loved every single minute of it. I so enjoyed it. I loved listening to the audiobook. The narrators definitely pulled those characters out and was like, here they are, have at it. They embodied the voices for those characters, and it was just so amazing. I really enjoyed this book, and I definitely think that it's written for a certain age range, but of course there may be some people that are younger that will enjoy this book as well. It's definitely universal, and it resonates with me because I am in that age range, and I can just totally see how all of this just unfolded, and all the struggles and things like that she goes through is just amazing. Amazing. I loved it. Loved it. The next book I read was Filthy English, English number 2, and this is by Ilsa Madden Mills. I put this in the new adult section, and this book I listened to on audiobook, and this book is about Remy and Dax. It is a play off of Romeo and Juliet reimagined, and yes! 5 stars. 5 humongous stars. I love me a good Romeo and Juliet reimagining, and this is topping it. Yes, top of my list, most definitely. Loved every single moment of it. Dax is British and sexy, and you were introduced to him in Dirty English, and that's all I'm going to say about him, because if you haven't read that one, you probably should before you read this one. They are standalone, so technically you don't have to, but it would give you some good sort of background. And Remy is so sassy. So super sassy, but so young in that she sort of knows what she wants, but at the same time, she also doesn't want to be treated a certain way. And at this point in her life, she definitely is putting her foot down and saying, you know, this is how I want to be treated, even though she does some things that I'm not very happy about at some parts. Some parts I was like, Remy, why? But overall, I loved her sassiness and her independence. And then the final book that I read for this month was Brokeback Mountain by Annie Pro. It was an LGBT book of a male-male romance, and I give this, listen to it on audiobook. This big steaming pile of poo. The only reason it's getting 2 stars is because I loved the movie. That is the only reason. This short story, oh my goodness, of 55 freaking pages, pile of steaming poop. Absolutely hate it. It was overly vulgar, and it just, I definitely think the people that took this short story, 55 pages, an hour to listen to it, or actually it was like 45 minutes because I sped that shit up, but it's touted out or tagged at an hour for the book. No. Just poo. Poo, poo, poo. My advice for anyone that wants to read Brokeback Mountain because they've seen the movie and they enjoyed the movie, don't freaking do it. Just don't do it. Stay away from this pile of steaming poo. That, bleh. So that is all the books that I read in the month of February. Well, the second half of February. As I said, you can check out my part 1 to see all those books, but 30 books in a month that has less than 30 days, I was rocking that shit. Rocking it. Because audiobook is amazing. Amazing. I am addicted to audiobooks. So love it. Love it, love it, love it. I think I read more audiobooks than I actually read physical books. And you know why that happens? Because in my car, I can listen to a book. While I'm sitting at my desk working at my computer, I can listen to a book. While I'm trying to ignore my husband and his talking at my son's swim practice, I can pop in my earphones and listen to a book. There are so many places where I can listen to the book instead of actually physically pulling out my Kindle. Oh my goodness. So I've now went from not being able to read an actual physical book because it's too big and bulky and clumpy and I've been spoiled by my Kindle, to my Kindle is sort of a hindrance as well because I pull that out and people just want to talk to me. Just gotta talk. I'm reading Kindle. Can't you see? Kindle reading what? So now I just pop in the earphones and yes, that is what I'm talking about. So have you read any of the books that I have listed off? Did you enjoy any of those books? Would you like me to go into a more in-depth conversation about those books? Let me know down in the comments section. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, there is a feedback form down in the description box so you guys can help me improve my channel. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching because it's super long this month. And I'll see you guys later.